Morning, I'm Aziff Azuddin, you're watching Morning Headlines. It's the 23rd of July. And everything you ever need to know in today's news across all the different papers is on the front page of Utusan. An update to the Malaysian MH17 issue. We have Jokowi, who has won the presidential elections in Indonesia. Israel and Palestine conflict dominating the whole spread. And the post for Selangor MB threatened. Let's begin. NSC runs a very nice movie poster like picture here with the headline, "The Journey Home Begins." So what's happened here? Now finally, after PR Najib's very much praised stealth diplomacy with the pro-Russian separatists, we are bringing back the bodies of the MH17 victims back to Malaysia, and we're hoping for a safe passage via train, right? So they're expected to arrive earliest by this Friday. And of course, this finally paves way for our Malaysian investigators to also go into the crime scene and also check and investigate on what has happened, what has occurred. But I think the biggest question here is also that Tony Abbott, the Prime Minister of Australia, has come with the question that prior to this, of course, the place was raided, the place was scavenged. So is the crime scene compromised? And will we be able to find what really happened, seeing that for the past few days, we haven't been able to get proper access into the crime scene? But the biggest question here also is to Mas. What will happen to Mas? Will it be privatized? The fact that two great crises has happened in the same year within the span of a few months does spell a lot of trouble for Mas the way forward. It's not their fault, but it does bring the question to what will happen next. And of course, if you go across the different Malay papers today, you will see our point man in Ukraine, Major Mustafa Omar, who is holding the black box here. I guess the question also here is that because it was in Russian hands prior to handing over, right, is the data inside the black box compromised? But we'll find that out very soon, I suppose. But of course, on to the Gaza-Palestine issue. We have Harian Metro, which has been quite sober for the past few days. It's quite refreshing, really. To international news, very serious. The Palestine-Gaza conflict. The death toll for Palestine has risen up to 600, while of course a bit more than 20 Israeli soldiers were found dead. But the question here is that whether or not the Arab League is finally going to step in, because clearly they've been doing nothing for the past 60 years. Will they even act now? Bringing up the question of sensitivity, Utusan's spread is quite questionable, seeing how they pose the bodies of dead children uncensored. The question here is why? Why are the bodies of children? Is it to raise emotions? Is it to make people angry enough at the case? Because, you know, they're suffering. And of course, a forewarning, graphic content for what I'm going to show you next. A photograph of a boy who was bombed. Utusan, why do you allow such pictures to go uncensored at that? But anyway, back to the home front on politics. We have, of course, Sinar Harian's front page, always interested in local politics. Past starts to tukar MB, you have a picture of a very forlorn Khalid Ibrahim and a very hopeful looking one, Aziza. Of course, in relation to what's happening in the struggle for the Selangor MB post, we have Anwar, who is finally revealing that his wife will run for MB, but Khalid, of course, will not go down with a fight. And there's also the question of Azmin Ali wedging himself in, as he always has wanted to for the past year. The biggest question to Anwar here is that, is this the Kajang move that he has been planning all along? And of course, on a happier note, for our neighbor Indonesia, we have Jokowi, who has won the presidential elections, even though Prabowo has, of course, created a bit of furore around it. Of course, it's very interesting to see how a man who started out as a businessman in furniture, who has finally climbered the ranks of politics to the highest position of power in politics. So, of course, the question is, will Jokowi lead Indonesia forward, especially in the ASEAN front? And the word for today, which I will bring to you on the table, is, of course, home. The bodies of the MH17 victims finally coming home after very effective negotiations with, of course, separatists. Home for Palestine, the people whose land are being occupied and pushed against the edge of the wall. And of course, on home from politics, Indonesia, with Jokowi winning the presidential elections, will Indonesia finally lead ASEAN forward? And that's all I have for you today in Morning Headlines. I'm Aziff Azuddin for BFM 89.9.